to the channel. Long time no see, especially for this guy right here. Gotten a lot of questions about how's the TDI swap going, different questions on setup, stuff like that. You know, wanting an update. So figured I'd go ahead and get it back in the shop, go ahead and get you guys an update, and finally do some of the other little nitpicky things that I've been wanting to do with it that I've been putting off because it's been running so well. So anyways, let's get started. Alrighty guys, so let's get started. So I guess the first thing I'll do is we'll just go over kind of any issues that I've had, any changes that I have made to the truck since kind of doing the swap, or maybe since you may have seen it last. So the first thing that I'm gonna say is with issues, I really don't have any major issues with this swap. Ever since I've done the swap, the only issue that I had, which was self-caused by me, and I think I've mentioned before, is on the first test drive after swapping it, my heater core leaked out into the floor because when I was doing the swap, I hit the heater core fittings a couple times and I obviously caused a leak. So I had to fix that immediately. But ever since then, I have had zero major problems is what I would like to say. It's ran perfect. I've had no reason to pull it back into the shop, which is why I've kind of neglected even having to really mess with it. Yes, I did go ahead and do the timing belt on this, but that's just a maintenance item. As far as any issues with the swap or anything that I've had problems with drivability, it has been zero. I've been driving the heck out of this thing. Like I said, I typically don't drive it to work every day. I drive my black Jetta, but I have driven this to work numerous times. I mean, last week I drove it just about every day to work. And at my job, I actually have a 50-minute drive one way. So like I said, I can drive it well over an hour down the highway. That's full highway speed because I'm highway all the way to my job. So that's 70 miles an hour for 50 minutes straight with no complaints, no issues whatsoever. So that's good. I'm really lucky and glad that I haven't had any issues as far as with swap stuff I've had to immediately kind of change. I would hop in this truck right now and drive it anywhere with the way it sits. Now there is a bunch of stuff that I do want to change, and I'm going to go over with you guys as far as stuff that I am going to try to update and stuff that I do need to fix and update from where when I did the swap I just kind of did some temporary stuff, which for those of you who know, a lot of temporary stuff is permanent if it works. So that's kind of how some of the stuff is that I want to change and just kind of make a little better. It's not like it's temporary, like it's made out of paper mache and it's going to fall off. It's just temporary as in, I made a bracket and I didn't go and refine it and clean it up and, just really make it look all nice and pretty like I'd want to and stuff like that. So I'm going to go over that stuff as well in this video. First thing though that I want to get, I've gotten a lot of questions about miles per gallon. I know that's a big thing when you're going to a TDI. So a lot of people want to know what I was getting on this particular truck. So stock, when I had this truck, just stock as far as gear ratios, it was a 4:11 gear ratio, the Toyota factory for the 22 RE. Drove on that for a little while, and the best I could get was about 24 miles to the gallon, which is still great, but it's not 45 miles to the gallon, but I don't think you'll be able to get 45 miles to the gallon on one of these. What I ended up doing and what I'm doing currently is I'm testing out a different gear ratio to see what kind of miles I'm getting on that. So I actually found a set of 373 rear end gears chunk. I purchased that and I've slung it into this truck just to see how it does with my miles per gallon down the highway. For one, going down the highway at 70 miles an hour with that gear ratio was a little bit high in RPMs because obviously with 411s, it's got to make a 22R go. Whereas with the TDI, you no longer need the gear ratio to get up and go because you have so much torque from the engine. So I really don't need that gear ratio to get up and go, and it kind of hurts me on the highway speeds of cruising at 75 like I want to. So I was like, let me try to find a different set of gears. I really wanted to find a set of 3 55s, I think is what the Toyota gear ratio of that, but they're kind of hard to find. So I'm still kind of looking to see if I can't find one of those sets because that's what I'd prefer. But I did find a set of 373s cheap, and I have that in there now. And I've been getting about 26 to 27 miles per gallon, and that's with these 33-inch BFGs, which like I said, are also brand new. And I got my aluminum NKs. These are the NKs that you could get as a dealer option from Toyota in like the early Tacomas and like T100s. I was able to find all the center caps. So I wanted to kind of keep that, kind of original, factory look with the truck, while also giving me the good look, because I love the look of, a mud tire or an all-terrain. So I have these. So with 33s, if I'm getting, 26, 27 miles per gallon, I'm pretty happy with that. Yes, I would love to get into the 30s. And I think if I got the 55-ish gears, that would get me closer to the 30 mile per gallon range with the 33-inch mud tires. But like I said, it depends on if we find it, and like if I do find it, I'll throw it in, and I'll make a video on that specifically as well. But like I said, right now with 373s, I'm getting about 26 to 27 miles per gallon. This is just a stage 1, balloon tune, and all kind of stock truck. I mean, nothing else performance, stock everything on the ALH engine other than the tune. So that's my current miles per gallon. There you go. So 2, let's get into drivability. Any issues I've had with air, like I said, full-wheel drive, all that works. Obviously, I'm not using it currently because my front-end gears are not updated to a 373, because I'm not sure if that's what I was going to stay with. Once I find the rear-end gears, then I'm going to go do the front. But the full-wheel drive does work just fine, all fully operational with no issues. Obviously, I'm not using that currently with the gear difference. But drivability goes, it is exceptional. I mean, like, the TDI ALH is exactly what this truck needed. So if you have a Toyota with a 22R and you're like, this thing it's such a great truck, but it really just needs some more, this is it. I mean, this is really it. I mean, I've been nothing but happy with this setup, and I'll tell everybody that I meet that asks me about it, they're like, why would you pull out a 22R? It's the most reliable engine. The ALH to me is, just as reliable, if not more reliable. And it really makes this truck just complete. I mean, this right here, if they sold this in today's age, would kill every other small truck that I've ever been in. And I already know what you're gonna say for those of you guys who have new small trucks. That's not possible, blah, 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 forget that. And I realize that you have your Apple CarPlay and, your fancy dashes and stuff like that. But when it comes to comparison of what they're making today, for instance, my brother has a 2019 Colorado diesel. That's comparable to exactly what this is. It's a small new truck. Yes, the interior is luxury, heated seats, CarPlay, all that jazz. But when it comes to power, I drive that Duramax, it feels less powerful than what this truck is. 2, I much prefer the simple, the simpleness of this older Toyota. I like the style, I love the body style of this old Toyota. I love the simple interior. I don't have all the fancy stuff, but I do have Apple CarPlay radio that I've installed in this truck. So I can't really go with you on the radio because I can put that in here as well. I don't have airbags, so obviously if I get in a wreck, I'm gonna have to just, die like a man. But that's besides the point. We're hoping that's not gonna happen. But like I said, I just love the simpleness of this truck, and I would say it's definitely just the perfect combination, and I highly recommend. Now, for drivability issues, highway speeds, no issues whatsoever. City driving, no issues whatsoever. Now, the issues that I do have are just more of just simple complaints from me, and some of them are self-caused. One is cab vibration. So at idle, you can feel the engine idling, which is a lot of self-caused. The reason being is when I did the transmission mount on this swap, I did a mock-up transmission mount and getting it where it would mount up correctly to the frame rail, and the transmission mount was worn out when I did the swap. But I wanted to get everything operational and working and make sure this was the transmission mount I was going to use, because I'm using the factory transmission mount, before I went and bought a brand new one, because if I have to change it, I wouldn't want to buy a brand new one and then immediately have to change it. So now that I know it's working, it is worn out, so it does cause a vibration of the cab at idle. Not really horrible, but you can feel it, and that's something that's one of the nitpicky things that I want to change currently, is get it up on the lift, go ahead and put a new transmission mount on it, and get that fixed, and hopefully that'll discontinue that little vibration that I have at idle, because all my front engine mounts and everything are brand new and are working fine. It's really just that transmission area that's kind of vibrating. And I know it's because it's a worn out transmission mount. So 2, I also, when I put this engine in, I use the TD Conversions adapter plate, which I highly recommend. That's the only one I would use because it's clockable, made it easy to get this in there, especially with the IFS front end, and gave me that extra space forward to miss the firewall. And the reason for that is because, the TD Conversions is 2 plates, so you can clock it, and it also, creates a huge gap between the transmission and the motor, which pushes that motor forward, which was necessary to miss the firewall. I still had to massage the firewall in to get a good gap from that vacuum pump, but it would have been impossible if I would have used like a super thin adapter plate. So I'm glad I used that. But when I was installing that, I'm using the factory 4-cylinder Toyota 5-speed transmission. I got the idea that I should just go ahead and buy a stage 3 clutch. And the clutch, this particular kit uses a Toyota clutch. It doesn't use the Volkswagen. So I bought a stage 3 22RE clutch because I was like, I'm putting the diesel in, I want to make sure I don't have any issues with slipping. Huge mistake. And the reason I say that is the clutch works as it's supposed to. I knew this when I was doing it, but I was like, I'll get over it. And unfortunately, I have not gotten over it. So that is going to be a change I'm going to make with this. And I suggest to you, unless you're doing a powerhouse swap TDI, put a stock clutch in there, or put just a heavy duty stock clutch, because they do make the 22RE heavy duty style stock clutches. But I highly suggest not going with the stage 3 like I did, because it's just like any other performance clutch. It's super choppy when I'm going through town and I'm having to push the clutch and stop and go. It's really miserable to drive around in, because the performance clutches don't engage. They're made to engage and not slip. They're not made to stop at stoplights and all the time and have smooth engagement like you would have with the 22R stock clutch. So I highly recommend you guys to not do what I did, because I'm going to have to take the transmission out and put a stock clutch back in it so that I can have that buttery smooth clutch, just like the Volkswagen and the 22REs are known for, the ones you can ride and really work. That's what I want back in this. Whereas now, when I try to engage the clutch, it is absolutely as choppy as possible, but that is also, like I said, from my choice of choosing the stage 3 clutch, which was a mistake on my half. So like I said, it's not really anything wrong with it. It works great. It does grip. It does not slip at all. I can drop the clutch and just absolutely go. But it just really sucks for drivability and smoothness when you're driving around town in the city. Like I said, obviously the highway, it doesn't really make a difference. It's just that pull-off that's got that choppiness to it, and I hate it. So that's one thing I'm going to be changing as well with this swap. Alrighty guys, so now I'm going to take you under the hood and we're going to talk about some of the changes that I may have made since the last time you've seen this. Some of this stuff is still in like my design phase. Obviously there's differences that I'm going to make, and changes I'm going to make, and testing that I'm doing, trying to make stuff work the way that I want it to work. Obviously there's a lot of disagreement. I've had people comment on stuff saying that's not going to work, blah blah blah. It may not, it may work. I'm trying different things, like I said, I'm trying to make it the way I want it. I want this truck to look as OEM as possible on the outside. I don't want you to be able to look anywhere on this truck and say, yeah, that's a swap truck. It looks like, a swap truck, or yeah, something's been done. I don't want any of that. And one reason I've had for that has been the intercooler. A lot of people are like, well, where's the intercooler? Where's the intercooler? Where's the intercooler? Because you don't see it in the front. I don't have an intercooler in the front. Right now, I'm going through testing of trying to make the intercooler work under the hood. And a lot of people are like, well, that's not gonna work, that's not gonna work, that's not gonna work. And I understand where they're coming from, but there is possibilities to make under the hood, charge air coolers work. The one that's on the Volkswagen Jetta is, you guessed it, not in the front. It is down in the fender well, where the air flow from the fender well up into that cooler to keep the air cool. That's how the Jetta one is designed. So it's not in the front. So there's confusion on how stuff actually works. And yes, the front end works the best. It does. I understand that. I can get a water cooled one, stuff like that, and I may end up testing that. But right now, I'm trying to mimic the design of the Jetta. So we'll talk about that when I get under the hood. So I'm going to turn the camera and show you guys what we're looking at. Alrighty guys, so here's my under hood look. Like I said, I'm sure it looks pretty similar. I don't know if you guys have been through the whole process, but a lot of this stuff has not really changed. We go over here to the battery box. The battery's still the same. Now, I have installed a battery cutoff switch, and the reason for this is I have a remote start tracking system on this truck also, and that tends to drain the battery. And if I let it sit for a while, like sometimes I may not drive it for, a week or so because I'm driving my Jetta to work or, I'm out of town, I flip that off. I'm going to install one of these on every one of my vehicles just to keep the battery safe because it works great. It has a little readout on it that tells me my battery voltage, and every time I get in this truck, I just come under here, pop the hood, turn it on, and it cranks right up. The battery's fully charged. So it's really good for any vehicle, but that's something that I added for myself. And, I would suggest, you adding it to your car, especially if you have a car that you don't drive every single day. Plus, it's a good anti-theft, because somebody come and got in it while, I have it sitting around. I mean, they're going to have to come under the hood and figure that out, or else the truck just does nothing. But anyways, moving over to just the engine area, nothing has really changed with any of my current design on how I have stuff. I still have my Drivability oil cooler right here with the electronic coolant fan. I never really have to run this at all. It has the Mishimoto oil thermostat that allows it to flow through here when needed based on temperature, but I never see high oil temperatures to where I need to turn this fan on because I do monitor it with a gauge. So this fan is almost useless. The only time that I'll see the oil temperature kind of get up a little high is if it's 100 degrees outside and I'm sitting at idle not moving. I will see it go up, but I never see it get hot to where I really need to turn this on. But typically if I'm sitting in the 100-degree weather not moving with the engine running, I'll just turn this fan on just because, but I really don't need to. I haven't never seen a time where I need to turn that fan on. Same way with the radiator. I never really see times where I need to turn on my electronic fan for the radiator here. It runs right at my 190 temperature that it's supposed to be pretty much at all times. I might see 195, at certain points. I've seen 200 in like I said, 100-degree weather if I sit for, 20 minutes straight, but I've never seen it actually get hot to where there's been a concern as far as, hey, I need to flip the fan on. I just sometimes do it out of, hey, I'm going to sit here for a while running, I'm going to leave it on. But I haven't seen that. Now, maybe if I do AC, which I do plan on trying to figure out a way to do an electronic AC, or maybe add on the Toyota AC back to this pulley system, then I might need to run these a little bit more often if I'm running AC. But currently, without AC, I don't really have that issue. Moving on to this side, everything over here is just about the same, and this is where I was talking about with my charge air cooler here. So, this is one of those things that I'm going through a lot of testing on, trying to get it to work here. That way I don't have, any sort of look on the front end with the charge air cooler. I want it to look OEM like it does now. Obviously that's not OEM, that come on the truck, and I do plan on getting this truck repainted, and I want to go with full, Toyota graphics, the whole ordeal. I want it to look, super, OEM, just 80s Toyota vibe, 100%. So now I want to explain how I have this designed, currently what I'm in testing. So a lot of people are like, well, yeah, that just gets heat soaked, blah, 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 whatever. And yes, that would be true if that was the exact case of how this works. For one, there's not a bunch of heat going on under the hood of this anyways. It's a diesel. Diesels don't create a super amount of heat like a gasser. So there's one thing that I have a pro for me compared to a gasser model, where it would be extremely hot, under the hood compared to a diesel. TDIs don't run as hot. Now, two, I have it designed where this opening right here that comes out, into my fender well area, for flow, air flows up into that area and gives me fresh cold air into this area. Now you're saying, oh, it's not got anything pushing it into there, and it doesn't. And that's where we're testing at. So what I have is I've installed an electric fan that when turned on is pushing air this way. So what it's doing is any air from this other side, it is pulling it through this charge air cooler and blowing it this direction. So the cold air that is on this side is being pulled by this electric fan that way. So that's kind of what I'm testing out now, just seeing how that works. And if that doesn't work, too well, it's like I said, I haven't had any running issues at all, power issues, anything like that. But I am, just trying to, look at temperatures and stuff like that and make a good design. Obviously, if this doesn't work, I may end up trying a water-cooled system with the Charge Air, or like I said, I've also been trying to see if I can't possibly find a front mounted Charge Air cooler that is super low profile that I can possibly hide in this front section right here behind the grill and make it look to where you can't see it. And I have found one that has the 2 outlets on this side to where I could come through, go straight through this this radiator support and go in and out on the one side, and it's a super thin Charge Air cooler that would go behind here, and I could probably hide it by just painting the fins black to where it would be super unnoticeable. I may end up trying that, I don't know. We'll see. I'm still, in the testing of this currently, so, we'll see what happens with that. So other than that, everything under the hood, pretty much the same, no issues. Haven't had anything that, I needed to work on. All of these systems I have been working spectacular. So no complaints there. Like I said, obviously not having to work on it is just great. Alrighty guys, so we're up underneath the truck. I'm gonna show you guys what I'm talking about with the transmission mount. So as you can see, this is your factory transmission mount. It is shot per se. And I'll show you my design. So what I ended up doing is I created these little 1/4-inch brackets that come out to connect to the front of that mount because I had to move the transmission forward, and the rear is still mounted into the factory spots on the cross member. But since I moved it forward, it was only going to be bolted into one of the bolt holes on each side. So I made these out of 1/4-inch steel to come out and catch the other bolts. And like I said, this has worked fine, other than, like I said, this mount just being completely shot, and this TDI definitely hasn't helped with that. So I need to replace this, and I think this is gonna help with my vibration that I have, just at idle. And then another thing I wanted to improve, which, bear with me guys, do not cook me. This is one of those temporary things I was trying out, but I put this mount here because obviously my engine mount's up front in the factory location like the Volkswagen. So I wanted one right here in the center to kind of help with stabilization, kind of like the Volkswagen where you have like that dog bone mount, at the transmission. So I made this bracket. Obviously I just want to clean this bracket up and, mounted it right here. And this little, mount I had, it's got, isolator and everything in there. This is the only thing I had and I could find that could kind of work at the time. The problem is as you can see, it's not the right size for this area. So this is one thing that I want to take off and fix, and either find something that fits correctly right in here to this width, or like I said, make me like an actual, spacer to go in there, like a solid, spacer rather than what's used now. It works. Obviously it's still here. It's been here for well over 10,000 miles with no issues. This is just something I want to actually make look nicer and more professional work than what this is. Like I said, this is one of those temporary things that you'll probably end up doing on your swap. You can cook me, I don't really care. I have a TDI swap Toyota that runs and drives just fine. So if you want to cook me for that, that's up to you. But anyways, this works. This is one thing that I really want to fix. As you can see here, I don't know if you guys know, this is my oil filter that I've relocated down here to make it absolutely beautiful for changing the oil. I put it in a great location. So other than that, underneath, no other issues. Got these 373s in here. If you're wondering what this is, since I had to move the transmission forward, the only thing I did for the drive line was buy this spacer that you can put on to give you that space. And this is how much I needed. Once I figured out how much I needed, rather than having to extend this, I just bought this spacer. So simple fix. So yeah, that's the only other thing underneath. Alrighty guys, so that kind of concludes my TDI Toyota update. I hope that I covered kind of everything that you guys were looking for. Obviously, I know that's not true, and there's going to be other things that people, may have asked about that I may have missed, or that, are wondering. And if you are, like I said, leave a comment in the description. I try to get back to you guys with any of your questions and comments as quickly as possible. I do work full time, work on stuff on the side, and then I also do YouTube on the side. So like I said, please bear with me. I may not respond instantly, but like I said, I will try to get and answer your questions. Obviously, for those of you who are here just to roast everything that I have on this, please leave those comments too. Those help for the algorithm as well. Hate comments, any of that stuff, well appreciated if you can leave that for me. Those of you who are actually here to assist and part of the TDI community, if you have anything that you guys have on y'all's TDI swaps, please let me know. Anything you guys have already tried and you have working for you. You've already tried, different gears, 355s, or you found something like that. Let me know if you guys have tried any of that stuff. I'm really curious to see if I should go down again so I can get a little bit better fuel mileage, down the highway, or, I don't have issues with, highway speed. Like I said, I can go 75 now really easily with a nice RPM range with these gears compared to the old ones. If there's anything in here that you've seen or anything that you possibly give me some good ideas on, like, I will appreciate that, because obviously, I'm not a TDI expert on, TDI swapping. I'm not a OEM manufacturer. I do work for one and I get a lot of ideas from it, but obviously this is still in the build process, design process. So obviously, like my dog bone mount that I made, I'm probably going to get cooked for that one, but it works. You can't really cook me on something that's worked and is still working. Obviously, it's not the prettiest and it's not super professional. I know that. I put it on, but now that I know it works, I can make it professional and pretty. But I'm not going to make something professional and pretty that I'm testing and then put it on and it not work, and then I have to, I just did all that work for nothing. So that's the way I see it when I'm starting to do stuff. Obviously, if I know it's going to work, I'm going to do it. But I didn't know exactly how that was going to work out. So anything testing, that's the way I do it. Sure, some of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's going to be others who are going to say, "Well, you should have made a fully billet aluminum, CNC machined piece for that." I would never do that because that's crappy. That's fine. If you want to cook me for that, maybe that's what I'll do when I redesign it this time. Now that I know it works, I may take it somewhere and get a CNC piece, shot out of it and have Paul's Performance logo put on it. I don't know, I might do that, but it's been hard for me to do that considering I've been driving it nonstop. I've just been loving life, driving my Toyota. So can't really hate on me for that. You can say all you want to about how it looks, but you can't say anything about the operation because I drive it all the time. I've had no issues. So I can't complain there. But like I said, if any of you guys have any improvements, ideas for me, please let me know. Any questions, leave those comments down in the description. Please like this video. That'll help as well. And those of you Power Stroke guys out there that are looking for some of those videos, I do have some diagnostic videos coming for you guys. So if you are here for some odd reason and you're not one of my TDI people, just know I am going to release some videos for that here soon, especially 6.0 videos, so stay tuned for that. As always, please like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.